Hello pilots, Thunderous Fulf here. Welcome to episode 4 of Planes of Ace Combat. Today's episode will be a very packed one, as we'll be taking a look at most of the F-16 family throughout Ace Combat. The F-16C and F Fighting Falcon, the F-16C Block 60, the F-16XL, F-16XF Gyre Falcon, and F-16XA Saker Falcon. For anyone wondering where the F-2A is, I've decided to make that aircraft its own episode. Yes, the F-2A is a variant of the F-16C, but keeping track of 6 different variants of the F-16 was a little more complicated than I thought it would be, so adding a 7th variant didn't sound like the best idea. One of the most widely known and flown families of aircraft in Ace Combat, the F-16 family has been used as low to mid-tier aircraft depending on the variant and game in question since the very beginning. The F-16C Fighting Falcon has been in Ace Combat from the very beginning. Serving as either a starter or low-tier aircraft in lots of Ace Combat games, this aircraft is built to dominate the skies, while also having something in the way of air-to-ground capabilities when the mission calls for it. The F-16F Fighting Falcon has so far only been in 2 Ace Combat games officially, Assault Horizon and Infinity, as a multi-role focused variant of the F-16C. This aircraft maintains the air-to-air capabilities of the F-16C, while receiving major improvements that make it more efficient in taking out targets on the ground. The F-16C Block 60, its single appearance as of this video being in Ace Combat 5, is an upgraded variant of the Fighting Falcon. Featuring improvements with a focus on air-to-air combat rather than a multi-role focus like with the F-16F, the Block 60 is able to handle air-to-air combat better while getting a more effective special weapon. The F-16XL is the ground attack variant of this family of aircraft. Having solid speed, stability, and defense in place of mobility and efficiency in air-to-air combat, the F-16XL can be a very efficient ground attack plane, especially in regard to its speed, a stat that's low for a lot of other attackers. The F-16XF Gyre Falcon is the futuristic equivalent of the F-16C in Ace Combat 3 Electrosphere. Despite the suite of upgrades this aircraft has received in comparison to the F-16C, it's actually a low-tier aircraft when compared to Ace Combat 3's whole roster. And last but not least, the F-16XA Saker Falcon, the futuristic equivalent of the F-16XL with an emphasis on air-to-ground combat in place of air-to-air as well. As stated in the intro of this video, the F-16C has been a part of the Ace Combat franchise from the very beginning. Displayed as just the F-16 in Ace Combat, known by its international name of Air Combat, this aircraft is a speedy and maneuverable one. However, it's also a fragile, unstable mess of an aircraft to fly. Having non-existent defense and stability, pilots are going to have their hands full flying this thing. That being said, if the pilot is able to get this aircraft to behave, it can serve as a decent early game aircraft with its speed, mobility, and combat capabilities. It's up to the pilot on whether they think they can handle this unstable and fragile aircraft, especially since with there being no special weapons in the game, the aircraft's performance is emphasized a lot more. Also displayed as just the F-16 here, this aircraft becomes much easier to fly in Ace Combat 2. Rather than it being a fragile and unstable speed demon of an aircraft to fly, the F-16 this time around has generally alright stats, perfect for its role of being an early game aircraft. Most notably, improvements to its stability and defense means that pilots will be able to hit targets more consistently and take more hits themselves from enemies. These improvements are emphasized a lot more in a game like this one, since with the lack of special weapons here as well, stats are the main differentiating factor in this game once more. After 3 episodes where we've had to skip this game due to there being no futuristic equivalents of the aircraft that we were looking at, we can finally dive into Ace Combat 3 Electrosphere with the F-16XF Gyre Falcon and XA Saker Falcon. The F-16XF Gyre Falcon is the futuristic equivalent of the F-16C Fighting Falcon, fitted for air-to-air combat first and foremost, although it can perform air-to-ground operations just fine as well, especially with how the attack stat in Ace Combat 3 works, where there's just a single one rather than 2 distinct stats for air-to-air and air-to-ground. Beginning with Ace Combat 3, pilots are able to choose different weapons for their plane. For the F-16XF and all other aircraft in Ace Combat 3 as well, pilots can choose a cannon and a special weapon. For the F-16XF's cannon, pilots can equip either the Vulcan that has a balance between rate of fire and damage, or the heavy machine gun that has slightly more damage at the cost of a slower rate of fire and slightly shorter range. For the special weapons, pilots can choose between taking standard missiles, spread bombs, which are essentially just unguided bombs, or an orbital satellite laser if you meet certain conditions. The conditions in question are either getting an A rank on all of the missions, or entering a button combo right after picking your weapons in the International version's mission simulator. The F-16XA Saker Falcon is the futuristic equivalent of the F-16XL, the air-to-ground focused variant of the F-16XF, featuring very good speed, especially for ground attack plane standards, and defense at the cost of maneuverability and stability. The F-16XA is a fast, slightly more difficult aircraft to fly, but if the pilot can keep this aircraft in check, it'll serve them well when going against those ground threats. As is the case with the F-16XF, the XA can take either a Vulcan or heavy machine gun for its cannon, along with either ground missiles, spread bombs, or the orbital satellite laser for its special weapon. In Ace Combat 4 Shattered Skies, also known as Ace Combat Distant Thunder in Europe, the F-16C is a low-tier aircraft that is a step up from aircraft like the F-4E and F-5E. This aircraft has good speed, mobility, defense, and air-to-air capabilities. However, it's important that pilots have steady hands, as the stability of this aircraft is on the lower end of things. Combined with the fact that the F-16C only gets air-to-ground special weapons despite it being a fighter, this means pilots will need to make sure their senses are sharp in order to get the most use out of it. The special weapons in question being small unguided bombs and 4 multi-lock-on air-to-ground missiles with XAGMs. The F-16C in Ace Combat 5 The Unsung War, also known as Ace Combat Squadron Leader in Europe, is an odd aircraft. It's got great speed and alright stats all around, including the stability this time, aside from its weakest one of air-to-air. Ironically, the F-16C has a better time against ground targets despite being designated as a fighter. It's still perfectly capable of being an early game aircraft in all situations, but the base stats do leave me scratching my head a little. The F-16C Block 60, on the other hand, feels like what the Fighting Falcon should have been, probably to make filling the Fighting Falcon's kill gauge to earn the Block 60 worth it. In any case, the Block 60 is a significant upgrade compared to its predecessor. It features improved stats across the board, most notably a huge buff in its air-to-air stat, and a special weapon that better fits the fighter designation in the form of 4 multi-lock-on air-to-air missiles with XMAAs. A much better aircraft to take on aerial engagements, the Block 60 is a worthy upgrade to the Fighting Falcon. The F-16XL, also acquired by filling the kill gauge of the F-16C all the way, is a worthy upgrade when it comes to air-to-ground capabilities, trading in mobility and air-to-air combat capabilities in favor of a great air-to-ground stat and decent stats everywhere else. The F-16XL is purpose-built to handle ground threats. The 4 multi-lock-on air-to-ground missiles with XAGMs this aircraft takes into battle can make quick work of groups of enemies, though caution must be taken due to their shorter range. This means that pilots of the XL need to be careful when going in for an attack with the XAGM so that they don't get hit. As is the case with lots of aircraft that make it from Ace Combat 5 to this game, the F-16C in Ace Combat 0 The Belkan War is essentially the same as it was in the previous game. Good speed, decent mobility, stability, and defense, along with decent air-to-ground capabilities while lacking a little in air-to-air, at least raw stats-wise. What makes the F-16C a solid early game aircraft though are the special weapons. 4 multi-lock-on air-to-air missiles with XMAAs, long-range air-to-ground missiles, and large unguided bombs. The XMAAs stand out in particular since those missiles allow the F-16C to have expanded air-to-air capabilities, especially when compared to the Ace Combat 4 and 5 versions where all this aircraft had were air-to-ground special weapons. The F-16XL in Ace Combat 0 is the same story, retaining the trade-off of a weaker air-to-air stat in favor of a better air-to-ground stat and the decent stats in the other categories. This aircraft is able to continue making short work of ground threats. On top of the XAGMs that are carried over into this game, the other 2 special weapons available, those being bomblet dispensers and semi-active air-to-air missiles, are alright. If you've got good aim and are able to line yourself up well, the bomblet dispensers can be a solid special weapon to take. Semi-active air-to-air missiles, on the other hand, perform great in this game, but whether pilots would want to take them into battle on an aircraft geared towards air-to-ground combat is a different story. The F-16C in Ace Combat X Skies of Deception is a perfectly serviceable early game aircraft. Honestly, there's nothing to write home about for the aircraft here. It's perfectly capable and fine as an early game plane, but caution should be taken so that pilots don't push their luck too hard with it. The special weapons on offer means it can handle both air-to-air and air-to-ground combat within reason, with the base stats supporting both just fine without a huge lean towards one or the other. Although the rocket pods do lack the accuracy needed to be reliable, the long-range air-to-ground missiles and 4 multi-lock multi-lock-on air-to-air missiles with the XMAAs allow this aircraft to carry out its early run duties very well. The F-16XL makes its handheld debut in this game as well, featuring the exact same special weapons loadout from Ace Combat Zero: XAGMs, bomblet dispensers, and semi-active air-to-air missiles. A decent mid-tier ground attacking aircraft, either the XAGMs or bomblet dispensers are able to serve pilots the best. Once more, the SAAMs perform well here, but whether pilots would want to take them into battle on an aircraft built for air-to-ground operations is a different story. After having to skip this game for the first 3 episodes as well due to the fact there was no flyable version of those previous aircraft in this game, we can finally take a look at Ace Combat 6 Fires of Liberation. The roster of aircraft in Ace Combat 6 is much more slim compared to other games. This is made apparent with the F-16C Fighting Falcon being the starter aircraft of choice rather than an early game pick. The F-16C is a very solid aircraft, especially for starter standards, featuring respectable stats across the board along with a solid arsenal of special weapons. This aircraft is a very solid one for pilots to take to the skies with during a fresh playthrough. Featuring 4 multi-lock-on air-to-air missiles with XMA-4s, large unguided bombs, and rocket pods that are absolute monsters in this game, the F-16C is one of the best starting aircraft that this series has seen yet. The F-16C in Ace Combat Joint Assault is a decent enough low-tier aircraft that can be bolstered with the right combo of parts to lean a bit more on the mid-tier side of things. More akin to a multi-role given its available loadout, the F-16C can perform air-to-air and air-to-ground strikes fairly well. As is the case with every aircraft in this game, the F-16C comes with 4 different standard missile types and 4 different special weapons. Standard, high accuracy, lightweight, and heavy missiles along with rocket pods, semi-active air-to-air missiles, long-range air-to-ground missiles, and 4 multi-lock-on missiles with XMAAs. The F-16XL is a mid-tier aircraft right out the gate in this game, and if pilots equip the right set of parts, it can actually lean just a tad bit into the high-tier territory. Along with the same suite of standard missiles outlined with the F-16C, the special weapons include bomblet dispensers, semi-active air-to-air missiles, 4 air-to-ground missiles with XAGMs, and omnidirectional multi-purpose missiles. While the F-16XL does have a preference towards air-to-ground combat, with the right set of parts and weapons like the ODMMs, this aircraft can actually become an effective multi-role should the situation call for it. In Ace Combat Assault Horizon, the F-16C is a low-tier aircraft that is exclusively geared towards taking out aerial threats. As is the case with lots of the other aircraft, the forced handholding this game does with DFM means the plane's strengths and weaknesses aren't as highlighted since you can't utilize the plane's capabilities on your own as often. Special weapons-wise, pilots are able to take 4 air-to-air missiles and quick maneuver air-to-air missiles. A perfectly fine aircraft to fly, but one that doesn't get much in the way of airtime with how Assault Horizon structures itself for things like the campaign and how aircraft selection is done and all of that. Same story with the F-16F Fighting Falcon, an aircraft capable of performing ground attacks given its designation of multi-role. Featuring very similar stats to the F-16C, the F-16F is able to take quick maneuver air-to-air missiles, guided penetration bombs, or electronic countermeasure pods into battle, providing the pilot with a decent variety of options to handle combat. When they're able to fly the aircraft, that is, and provided there aren't any better options for pilots to choose. And, you know, the whole DFM and ASM thing, reducing each aircraft's effectiveness because it's all on rails handholdy stuff. The F-16C fulfills the role of the starter aircraft once more in Ace Combat Assault Horizon Legacy, also known as Ace Combat 3D Cross Rumble in Japan. Featuring very respectable raw stats for a starter aircraft, it can be turned into a mid-tier machine with the right combination of parts. Featuring long-range air-to-air missiles, guided penetration bombs in the form of GDPs, and multi-purpose missiles, the F-16C is a solid all-round choice for fresh playthroughs of this game, able to give pilots an introduction to both air-to-air and air-to-ground attacks. The F-16C in Ace Combat Infinity, like all of the other aircraft in this game, could be upgraded to be an absolute beast of a machine in the skies when fully maxed out. Geared towards air-to-air combat, the F-16C special weapons that it could take into battle were 4 multi-lock-on air-to-air missiles, high-capacity air-to-air missiles, and quick maneuver air-to-air missiles. It's worth noting, though, that even when fully upgraded, the F-16C could only get up to a C in air-to-ground capabilities, excluding any parts that could be equipped to mitigate that. So, pilots still had to generally primarily stick with air-to-air combat. The F-16F, on the other hand, was able to achieve A's and S's across the board when fully upgraded, and with it being a multi-role able to take both air-to-air and air-to-ground special weapons into battle, I could see how, if pilots had to pick between the F-16C or F, lots would take the F variant, especially with it being able to carry quick maneuver air-to-air missiles, guided penetration bombs, and 4 air-to-ground missiles into battle. The F-16XL was designated as an attacker in this game, but when fully maxed out, it could easily hold its own in air-to-air combat as well, with the special weapons being 4 air-to-ground missiles, standoff dispensers, and guided penetration bombs. It was still in the pilot's best interest to stick with ground attacks to get the most out of this aircraft, but when enemy planes were inbound, the XL could easily put up a fight against them. Serving as the starter aircraft in Ace Combat 7 Skies Unknown, by default, this thing has strong speed and air-to-air capabilities, but not much else. As is the case with every aircraft in Skies Unknown, it's highly advised that pilots equip parts in order to boost the stats to be able to fly and fight more efficiently. And in combination with those parts, the special weapons on offer are solid: 4 air-to-air missiles, guided penetration bombs, and short-range aerial suppression missiles. Although it's primarily tailored towards air-to-air engagements, the F-16C can engage its fair share of ground targets as well, making it a solid starter aircraft for this game. After the beasts of aircraft that the F-16XL could become in Joint Assault and Infinity, extra emphasis on could for Infinity's case, its stats were dialed back to be a mid-tier air-to-ground focused aircraft. Even with parts, it'll still be a mid-tier aircraft overall. For ground attack standards though, the F-16XL can easily become one of the best choices. It's able to take 4 unguided bombs, 4 air-to-air missiles, and 4 air-to-ground missiles into battle, meaning it's got a special weapon for general destruction, more precise destruction, and even some air-to-air capabilities should the situation call for it. The F-16 family is one of the most well-known groups of aircraft in the Ace Combat franchise, having variants ranging from air-to-air, multi-role, and air-to-ground. Whatever the combat situation, there's an F-16 variant that can take on the mission at hand, serving as a solid starter, early game, or mid-game aircraft depending on the game and variant in question. The F-16 family has been, and will continue to be, a reliable set of aircraft that pilots will be taking to the skies with for years to come. Thank you all for watching episode 4 of Planes of Ace Combat. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you're looking forward to the next episode where we'll be taking a look at the F-2A. I know I probably could have included the F-2A in this list as well, but like I said at the start, juggling 6 different F-16s was a bit more of a task than I thought it would be, so I made an executive decision for the F-2A to be its own episode. In any case, see you then, pilots. Take care.